We're going to move straight on, have a presentation from Albert Wada, Director of Wada Farms, and we'll take questions at the end.
Good afternoon, everybody. I am happy to be here all the way from Idaho in the United States. My thanks to the World Potato Congress, the Potato Council, Ellen, and it's a pleasure to be here and co-presenting with Herman. I really appreciate the work that WPC is doing in terms of variety development, because it's becoming such an increasing importance in our industry as fresh producers. I'm Albert Wada, and I come from that little spot right there in Idaho. And believe it or not, Idaho is the largest potato producing state in the United States, and my county is Bingham County, which is the largest potato producing county in the United States. At least that's what I'm told. Over the past 70 years, Wada Farms has grown from my dad's original 160 acres back in 1943 to our current nearly 30,000 acres. And of course, I couldn't have accomplished that without the help of my wife and my two sons you see there in the pictures to the left. And they're very involved in the business. I'm always amazed as I travel across the Atlantic. I've been here a couple of times on a couple of potato tours in the past. And I'll tell folks over here that I'm a third generation farming family, and they look at me and they say, well, so what? We're a sixth or seventh generation farming family, and they've had the family farm for well over a century. And I guess what I'm going to talk about today would hopefully give us the ability as farmers to be more sustainably, economically sustainable, and that we could keep our farm operations going well into the future generations. So that provides a pretty good transition into today's topic, which is growing potatoes for maximum return. And this is something I think you would all attest to, that it's becoming increasingly difficult in today's economic climate, and one we must address if we want to pass these farms down to these future generations. The theme for this conference is, appropriately, Think Global, Win Local. I hope that much of what we will cover today will resonate with many of you, regardless of what country you're from. I think we all have similar, if not the same challenges, no matter where we produce potatoes. And winning locally in our respective countries is a primary purpose of this conference as well, and one which can be achieved by learning, sharing ideas, and networking with fellow growers so that we can try to maximize our return. So let's take a look at a brief overview of the U.S. potato industry. As you can see, from 2002 to 2011, harvested potato acreage have declined over 15%, down from 1.1 million acres in 2002 to 900,000 acres last year. However, at the same time, overall yields have improved by almost 11%, going from 374 hundredweight per acre to 414 hundredweight per acre. But even with the improved yields, total production over this same period of time has declined by about 6%. Our per capita consumption is declining. I believe 20 years ago, Americans were eating somewhere north of 150 pounds per person. Latest data shows that it's down around 120. So our per capita consumption is declining, and if you add to that our population growth, the picture actually gets worse. As farmers, when we talk about our profitability, or in many cases lack of profitability, we often say it's a supply and demand business. But if we really study the issue, our demand is declining, and it has been for many years. And while we should be managing supply, the competitiveness and independent nature of the U.S. farmer doesn't always match that goal. Getting commitments to manage supply can be difficult. We growers tend to hope that Mother Nature will take care of the problem for us, and we usually hope that it takes care of the problem in another growing area, not ours. So how does the U.S. potato crop get utilized within the various sectors? Within the U.S., approximately 60% of the crop goes to processors. 36.8% goes to frozen, 13.5% to chips, and 10% to the dehydration business. Virtually 100% of this business is contracted. Over 26% of the production goes to what we refer to as fresh table stock, which represents the fresh retail and food service retail markets. And as competitive as the processing segment is, the fresh segment is really a lot tougher. It's very competitive. And fortunately or unfortunately, this is the arena that we as Wada Farms mostly compete in. Just to give you some idea of the scope of our business in the U.S., there are almost 1,000 growers in the U.S., ranging in scale from small family farms, maybe in the eastern seaboard of 10 acres or thereabouts, up to operations the size of ours and even larger, much larger. Then there are the 500 sales and selling organizations made up of various grower shippers' own sales desks, brokers, wholesalers, and repackers. They're competing for the business of over 30,000 supermarkets, represented by 400 chains or buying groups. I'm sure it's true in your countries, but consolidation has very rapidly taken place in the States. Over 80% of the fresh retail potato volume is now accounted for by the top 10 retailers. That same consolidation has also taken place in the food service market, with a handful of larger distributors and mass feeders controlling the bulk of the business. So we have 1,000 growers, 500 sales organizations competing for 20 customers. And this business is typically not contracted. It operates in the open market and as such becomes very transactional. So how do you maximize returns with rising operational costs, a declining per capita consumption in a competitive transactional marketplace? By the way, I looked at one of your, as I drove by a service station this morning, I looked at the price and I slowly computed what that meant in terms of dollars per gallon in U.S. And I'm sorry, you guys, but that's just atrocious what you have to pay for fuel over here. So there are several options in our attempt to maximize returns. First, you can invest in operational excellence with automated irrigation systems, energy efficient farm equipment, GPS systems that are all the rage these days, more precise and better chemical applications, and better packaging equipment, to name a few. But it's likely, as good business people, we growers are probably already doing most of this, as much as we can afford to do. We have to protect our investment and offset a portion of these ever-rising costs. I read a statistic the other day by the University of Idaho that operational costs for fresh potato growers between the years 2010 and 2011 had increased by 22%. So huge inflation on our cost side. But in the end, even with all this operational excellence and efficiency, you can't save yourself into prosperity. Other measures have to be taken to maximize returns. Secondly, you can adopt the last man standing philosophy. That is, you make a sale at any price, any cost, to drive competition out of business. And essentially, you're buying market share, zero-sum competition. If you're the survivor, you're certainly going to come out in the end. However, this is a very costly and risky strategy. You just have to look at Kmart. Some of you folks maybe remember what happened to them in the United States and their strategy against Walmart. And there are dozens of other examples which have pretty much disappeared in the sunset. Third, in the global industry, we must do a better job of matching supply to demand. We all have experienced what a potato crop oversupply can do to our bottom line, and it actually happens. Every year we have a great year, we react by overplanting. Mother Nature smiles on us, we have a huge crop, and prices go to the basement and tend to stay there for a number of years. So fresh growers in the U.S. have been taking a more proactive and cooperative approach to managing supply. And even so, we've had to rely on Mother Nature to help trim our crops the last couple of years so that we could be profitable. So matching supply and demand is one of the surest ways to maximize returns, but it is one of the most difficult ways. And we do need to understand the market and its needs particularly, understand the retailer and the consumer, and that we all participate, not just hope for that miracle. I think that's probably an operating model for most farmers in the U.S., a formula for it at least. While I'm a strong supporter of operational excellence and matching supply to demand, the last man standing strategy is a bit too risky for me. The real task at hand is to build better demand for our products. Our farm is primarily based on the russet potato, and our packing shed likes nothing better than to pack large russet 5, 10, and 20-pound bags of potatoes for the efficiency it gives us. But with a rapidly changing consumer, smaller family sizes, and consumers looking for something new, we've got to make changes. And I'm sure there are many people in this room that realize or recognize that growers are not the fastest to adapt to change. Consumption of fresh spuds have been going down slowly but steadily in the past 15 years. And this becomes more alarming when you consider our population has been growing, granted at a lower rate, but still growing. In 1997, a typical U.S. retail produce department carried 400 items. Today it's over 700. So consumers are being bombarded with a lot of selections in the produce aisle. Smaller family sizes have certainly come into play, and the sit-down family meal event is diminishing. 20 years ago, the oven and stovetop were the primary cooking devices. Today, that's changing, and our current product offerings do not lend themselves particularly well with the way people are preparing their meals today. The average dinner occasion, according to this survey, is about 60 minutes. However, I personally think it's much less than that, judging from my own lifestyle. I think it's something probably more in the 30-minute area. Baby boomers and empty nesters are placing a greater value on leisure time and wellness. The economy has forced a lot of couples into both having to work, and when they get home, they need to have speed in their meal preparation. The younger generation just doesn't cook like the way we used to, and the oven for them sometimes is a foreign appliance. Fad diets like the Atkins certainly didn't help, and you know what? There's probably going to be another fad diet come along that is going to help us or not help us move potatoes. And it seems like fries and chips, you've seen that picture before on Newsweek. I think I'm going to stop my subscription to Newsweek, by the way. But it's fries and potato chips have become the poster child for obesity, and fresh potatoes along with that by association. Add to these factors that we as an industry have tended to commoditize our product, and let the retail adage was pretty much pile them high and let them fly. So just as consumer attitudes are changing, we've got to change our attitudes and begin treating our crop as a consumer packaged good. Now, we at Wada have started to make some of these changes in our own operation, and it's been a real learning curve. Several years ago, Wada Farms was one of the first to introduce the microwavable single-serve potato, followed by sweet potatoes, and then we introduced a display-ready case. Came out with a few years ago an easy steamer product, which is a steam-in-bag potato. We found out that many of the consumers didn't really understand what it was, that it was a steam-in-bag product. They were dumping the potatoes out and boiling them or microwaving them otherwise. So we changed the product to microwave-in-bag, came out with a display-ready point-of-sale appliance, and it's helped sales. Sales are growing. And now we've introduced easy grillers for the summer season with a display-ready case that can go by the meat department. So all these items lend themselves to convenience, an important aspect. We also expanded our fingerling and specialty product lines. We've also vertically integrated into some dehy processing because dehy products can certainly take much less time to prepare at the dinner table. And of course, the new varieties that come on the scene, thanks to the efforts like Herman's company has done and what quite a few of the growers in the United States are doing. We have launched on our own variety development within Wada Farms, and I just wish that we had started 10 years ago. It's really where the growth is today. So operational excellence, matching supply to demand, responding to the consumer, innovation, packaging, marketing, and new varieties are all challenges we must address. So maximizing returns tomorrow is going to require change today. So with that, Herman and I would like to thank you very much for attending this session.
Thank you very much indeed, Albert Wada. And just a couple of comments from me, and then we'll take questions. So if you could just prepare to ask them. I think as a grower for this market in Scotland, most of those slides apply absolutely to the world that I live in. And the comparisons between your experience in the US and that in the UK are extremely similar. I was also interested to notice, Herman, your presentation on the need to improve what's in front of consumers in the retail area, something that we in Potato Council are working very hard on as well. But I think it's a challenge. I have many of our levy payers say to me, why can't you manage the supply base in the UK? Isn't that what a levy boards are supposed to do? Well, of course, we can't do that because our customers are also our levy payers. So we in the UK are not able to manage our supply chains and that way in our supply. So it's quite a challenge for us to maximize returns other than through operational excellence and the great work in marketing and consumer research that happens both in Potato Council and also with our customers. So anyway, a few thoughts from me. Can we have some questions now, please?
Cedric Porter from World Potato Markets. In the sort of current economic crisis and hard times, have you seen people going away from more sort of differentiated product to more sort of basic bags of potatoes, if you like, in both countries?
Yeah, yes, I think in general that happens, and that is also clear. And we cannot change that, but I think on the other hand, what we see now already again is that retailers together with their customers are coming back, because at the end you can go to the standard packaging at the economic prices, but there is also a moment where you have to differentiate yourself again among your competitors, and that's also happening today. So we have customers today who said 4 years ago we were interesting but we stopped because of the economic crisis, are starting again today to talk about it. So I think we have to keep on fighting on this one and to take care that we are trying to fill in with potatoes the different differentiated needs which consumers have, because they have them. Maybe the size of the segments getting less in some cases.
I might just add, as I pointed out on the one slide on my presentation, in the past, retailers, a lot of the large retailers' philosophy was to pile it high and let it fly. And a lot of our retailers actually reduced the number of SKUs that they carried on their produce shelves. And they found out that that wasn't a successful strategy. So nowadays they're redefining their the potato category in their produce departments by looking for new innovative products and actually adding SKUs to the potato display in an effort to differentiate and decommoditize that potato table.
Thank you. Next question, please. I can't see. Have we got another question? Okay. Thank you, Carol.
Kevin McIsaac from Canada. To Albert especially, but also to both speakers, what do you see as the bright spot in the future? What's the part of the potato industry that's going to make you the most money in the coming years?
Kevin, did I understand that question to be what's going to make the potato grower the most money in the coming years? Find a cheap fare to Las Vegas would be my first recommendation. But beyond that, I believe of some of the strategies that I listed on my presentation, the most viable one, however, the most difficult one, the one that we have tried in the United States with varying degrees of success, is to establish a network of grower communications based on good market data and have that data be so unimpeachable that it's probably better data than you're getting from any of the government agencies that might be in charge of counting potatoes, if you will. And then using that data to make rational, intelligent decisions about the amount of potato that's grown for any specific use. Not in an effort to undersupply the market, but in an effort to adequately provide the market the potatoes that whatever market in the industry needs, but at a profitable price to growers. So in my mind, if there can be some rational movement, some rational thought put into supply management, I think that single-handedly has the most potential to bring sustainable profitability to growers.
Yeah, I only want to turn around the question. I think if we don't manage as potato industry to keep the young people to the potatoes, I think we have big problems. So what we have to do is to really think and focus ourselves on the young consumers, taking care that they keep on consuming or consuming more potatoes, and taking care that we understand their need. And we have done consumer research or young consumer research with students and this kind of generation. These people are not against potatoes. They have not a real opinion about potatoes, but not against potatoes. But what they many times say is, please help us to make our choice. What do we have to buy if we're standing in front of the potato shelf? How do we have to cook it, etc.? And there's where we have to think more to help them and in order to keep the continuity in our business.
Thank you. We're actually out of time now. And if there's one more burning question, we could take it. But otherwise, I think we'll just draw to a close. I'd like you all to thank very much our two guest speakers this afternoon who presented us with a consistent message about what we need to do to remain profitable in delivering to consumers' needs. Thank you very much indeed. Thank you, gentlemen.